Hey guys, Chris here. So right behind me we have a 2005 Range Rover Vogue, and in today's video I'm going to give you guys a tour of this car on the interior and on the exterior. So I want to start the video by thanking my friend Tomas at TS Autosalg for providing me with this almost 15-year-old Range Rover. Check out his dealership. His website will be linked in the description down below. So 15 years ago, when this car first came out, 15 or 16 years ago, 2002, this was the pinnacle in luxury SUV, and it's going to be very interesting to show you guys this car, what it looks like on the exterior and on the interior, you know, almost 15 years later. This is a 2005 model, so this is 13 or 14 years old. It's done 250,000 kilometers, and this car isn't, you know, in pristine order. This has been used as a vehicle for all those years, but it's still held up very nicely in my opinion. So starting off with the front end, you have the classic Range Rover lettering here on, you know, the hood, and this also has an upgraded 2010 facelift grille, which makes this car look just a bit more modern. The blue is, or the color is a blue metallic paint, not sure what it is called. And you also have these fog lights down low here. It has HID xenon headlights, and I think the presence, the boxiness of this car is going to has aged very well. This is going to be a future classic in my opinion, like Range Rovers older than this. And this is the day and age where we have 18-inch wheels on a large SUV, and that is just hilarious, guys. And it doesn't actually look too small on this, but the tires are 255/60 profile 18s, so look at all that rubber. You can easily fit much bigger wheels and tires because the wheel arches, the gap between you know, the wheel and the wheel arch is huge. You can see this shut line here shows that this is a clamshell hood, which was a very nice design feature of the first, you know, generation Range Rover, and they brought it back here in the third generation. And it also has these side vents here, which probably is cooling. And then you have body colored cladding on the lower part of the door. And these door handles are, yeah, just silver painted, very massive in operation. And then you have these huge greenhouse, as you can see here. You can see almost the height of the winch from the belt line and up to the top of the roof is almost the same length from the belt line and to the bottom of the door. But surprisingly, very little chrome, very little bling bling. It's blacked out around the windows, as you can see, and you don't even have a roof rail on top in any contrasting color. You don't even have a roof rail at all. You have these darked out windows from the B pillars and backwards. And I think it just looks very classy and very clean, and that's one of the reasons I think this will age very well and become a future classic. Walking over to the rear, you have this box, which is just typical and classy Range Rover. Still think these cars look very nice, even though they are getting old now. And you have these rear taillights, which are actually very cool. Just two round circles inside this taillight enclosure. And then you have this huge rear windscreen. We're going to take a look at the trunk later and the interior of the car and how this opens up. You have the huge Vogue lettering here, which was then the top of the line trim. Land Rover being, you know, the make, and then Range Rover being the model. So no special stuff about this car. You have a trailer hitch there, and you also have a tow or a hook there, and then you have just parking sensors. So just a very clean looking SUV, which I think will age very well in the future. So before we step inside, I just want to show you guys the key of this Range Rover, and this is a day and era where Range Rover was owned by BMW. So this is actually the exact same key I had on my 1999 5 Series back in, you know, the early 2000s, and it had the same problem with the lock button just collapsing in on itself. So this is a BMW key, and this of course doesn't have any keyless go or keyless entry. I think this is unlock, this is lock, and then that is unlock, and this is the trunk. So press there to lock, press there to unlock. Just gonna put my key, that key back in my pocket. So no keyless go, no keyless entry, no pressing the door handle to lock the car, no putting your hand behind the handle to opening the car. So we're just gonna pull to open, and the door feels so massive and so solid. It feels very nice. And this car has done 250,000 kilometers, and it being a light colored interior, that shows. This isn't the interior that has been kept up the best, but that also really shows the durability and the quality of this interior. So you have the window switches up here, everything works, the window locks, everything is one touch operation up and down. You have the mirrors here, and then you can also fold the mirrors with using that button. And then you have soft touch plastics here, very nice, everything just feels very solid. And then you have softly padded leather here, which is stitched. You can see the leather is worn. And then you have this, you know, very popular in the 2000s, this metallic gray finish, which I think, well, isn't, I would probably change that if this was my car. And then you have, this looks like metal, but it's actually a plastic grab handle. And then this car has the Harman Kardon Logic 7 surround, and it was actually the first good sound system I tested in the car back in the mid-2000s when I test drove one of these, or actually the Sport I tested, not this. And then you have the door pocket here, which actually is lined with carpet. That's not something you see, or fabric, a lot today. And this is also softly touched plastics, soft touch, softly, and that's an exposed torque screw, which is a bit odd. You wouldn't expect that in a car today. And then you have wood trim down here, so rather than wood trim up here, you have wood trim down here, but everything just feels super solid and is held up very nicely. Moving over to the interior, so you have the seat, which is electrically adjustable in every direction. As you can see there, 3 memory settings, and you have this metal plate here just protecting that. And, well, this is a bit loose. I think that could be, I only think that's a screw loose. I don't think it's actually broken. But this is very solid, everything. But here you can see this car has done 250,000 kilometers. But funny enough, or rather a testament to, you know, the build quality of these cars. I know these cars are notorious for reliability issues, but the build quality, there is no holes. You only have this piping here, which is worn, but you move in and out of that portion all the time, so that is to be expected. But for being a car that has done this many miles, it's only dirty. Actually, if this would have, you know, a proper deep rinsing, a deep clean, this would probably look very nice. And you have really nice patterns here on, you know, the seats, very simple leather patterns and very nice and soft leather. These are the comfort seats, which, you know, again, were BMW seats where you can adjust the upper part. You can see the angle you can adjust. You can also adjust the headrest electrically. This is also electrically adjustable. The steering wheel column there, though the ignition isn't on. Just going to show you this side panel here before we step inside. Again, massive, massive wood. Everything just works and looks very nice. Yeah, that is actually very impressive, and you have a nice light down here. So we're going to take a step inside because it is cold outside, and close the door after us. So this is what you were granted in the mid-2000s if you were going to buy the top of the line luxury vehicle. This car, you know, competed with S-classes, and yeah, it was before Bentley and Rolls-Royce had an SUV. This was the top of the food chain SUV, and you have this large steering wheel, which has, you know, buttons on the side, and everything is very similar to, you know, the late 2000s, the early 2000s BMW switchgear, which this basically is the button layout here is identical to the 99 Model 5 Series I had. So you have to activate the cruise control, you have increase and decrease your speed, and then you have, no, this is resumed, this is on and off of the cruise control, and you actually have a heated steering wheel in this car, which is very, very impressive. Skip forwards and backwards for track, and then you have volume up and down, and then this does something to switch the controls between the radio and the telephone, and you actually have voice command. That is hilarious. And then we're just going to put the key in the ignition. Here you have, I'm just going to do that, and the key is down here actually. So turn on the ignition. Oh, just going to turn down the radio. And just going to turn down the fan. This is a very simple gauge cluster, and this green color is very typical of Range Rover. They used to have these green, dials in, the late 2000s, early 2000s, mid 2000s, and it's just a very simple layout. So you have your fuel gauge on the left, you have your speedometer to the right of that, left to the center, and then right of the center you have the tachometer, and then you have the engine water temperature. This is a diesel, a 3-liter diesel V6 BMW derived unit, 177 horsepower. That's why the red line is very low there at 5,000 RPM, but I think this will shift even lower. Moving, and here, this actually has a leather dashboard, guys, and that actually looks new. So if this interior was kept up, in the same fashion as this dashboard was kept up, I think it would still look very sharp even after 250,000 kilometers. You can see that actually the passenger seat, that looks not worn at all. That looks very, very nice and very, very sharp. No marks, just fade discoloration. Yeah, that is very impressive, and this leather is very soft. These seats are very comfortable. So the center stack, you have this, which also is a BMW derived head unit, infotainment system. I have no idea how it works. Let's see if we can find is there a menu button? What does mode do? That, yeah, between radio and sources. Language system. Yeah, this is not very intuitive. So you don't actually have a menu button, so you can't just go out for menu. You just have different shortcuts here with these hieroglyphics that don't make any sense at all. But we're just going to leave that at that. It does look very old. It does look very dated, though it's not as bad as I was expecting. Down below that, you have these huge vents, and then you have somewhat of the largest hazard button I've seen in a long time. Below that, you have physical climate control buttons. These are just very easy and very nice to use. Nothing hocus pocus, nothing fancy here. Your temperature, your auto control for the fan. We're just going to turn that so the fan isn't blowing loudly. You can also direct air manually if you want. And then you have your DSC, your dynamic stability control defeat button. And then down here actually, let's see if we can get that, you have an analog clock, which isn't, correct, but you can also adjust the air suspension at the height with this button. And then down here you have your terrain response control. We're not going to take this car off-road, but that is really cool to see, and all that tech works. And then you actually have your electric tailgate opening there, your button there, and then you also have your park sensors there down below. As I showed you, the key ignition switch is down here. You have this massive shifter which says Range Rover on top. Feels very nice and very solid. And opposite to the cars today, which have a 12-volt outlet, this has a cigarette igniter, which also is a 12-volt power outlet. It is funny to see that it actually has a cigarette graphic there. A modern car would have a 12-volt graphic. And this car has a manual parking brake, which works very nicely because I have tested it. And then you have, is this a cup holder? This is an ashtray, guys, that you can take out and remove. But that also doubles up as a cup holder. And this car only has one cup holder. Or what is this? It has two cup holders, and that must be the most elaborate, the most useless cup holder I've ever seen. It probably works nice, but why this insane operation? That is just bound to break in some manner or fashion. You have these armrests here, which are, manually adjustable. One for the driver's seat, one for the passenger seat. And then you have this huge storage here. And this is actually cooled. This is a refrigerator. And then you have another 12-volt outlet there. But this is very small. Can you open this up? And no. Can you open it? Yeah. So you can open it up here. And here is your phone that this car would have been equipped with in the mid-2000s. So you just have some small storage here for coins and stuff. It is rubberized, so that is quite practical. And you can actually see that shock there, which dampens the closing of this, but I think that is just shot. Over to the right side of the console here, you have, well, a glove box. And how do you open that? By pressing this button? Yes, you do. Okay, so yeah, And then, oddly enough, this is hard touch plastics. Why? And that's another cup holder there. Let's see if we can reach over and see how that works. Yeah, that actually works. So from only having one cup holder, I thought this car actually has 3 cup holders in the front if you remove the ashtray. So if you're not a smoker, this car has 3 cup holders in the front. Up here you have a storage bin here for your glasses. That actually works. And then you have a sunroof, because panoramic sunroofs weren't very common, you know, in the early 2000s when this car came out. So that is the front cabin. Let's go ahead and step back into the rear seat and check out that. And these doors just feel so massive and so huge. Really nice quality feel. Soft touch plastics on top here. Though this is hard touch plastics. No, this is actually rubberized, so that doesn't feel very cheap at all. Leather here, the same, you know, plastic grab handle there. The same speaker cover from the Harman Kardon Logic 7 surround system down there. More carpeting in the inside, and actually carpeted on the inside of the door pocket. Soft touch plastics there. Wood trim there. And then you have the rear seat. So this car has had some kind of accident behind here. I'm not sure what it is. Yeah, just a few marks. I'm sure you could treat that with something. Let's just take a step, and the step in height is huge. Look at that maneuver. Look at that maneuver to climb into this car. And that is a bit weird, because once you're sitting here, you're sitting very high. I'm not the tallest guy, guys. But I don't have a lot of room in this car. That is very weird, but I can see how children sit very nicely and very comfortably here in the rear seat, because it is very cozy and very comfortable to sit in the rear seat here, and everything is just covered in leather. This seat bag is leather, and this pocket here is leather, so materials are very, very nice. And then you have this seat here, and then you actually don't have any transmission tunnel at all. So here I think you can sit 3 people abreast very, very comfortably, and then you have this commanding view out of the windows. And this, you know, this greenhouse is just so huge. Let's check out the armrest lastly, and that's what that looks like. And you have cup holders here. Yes, you do. So yeah, very nice, very comfortable. This is a back seat I could sit in for many hours and get very comfortable in. You have rear seat climate control here. You can turn your heat up and your heat down. Also open and close the vents, and then you also have heated rear seats, and also you have a cigarette lighter there. So that is the back seat. We're just going to slide out on this, and look how far I have to jump down. Actually jumping out of the car. And then lastly, let's check out the trunk, and I do think this has an electric tailgate. No, it doesn't. So those springs could probably use replacing. And this is the 2 split tailgate, or the split tailgate. So if you just, you know, groceries and stuff, you can just, you know, load it in like that. Or if you want to load bigger stuff. Do you have another handle? How do you open up this? Is this an IQ test? How does this open? Oh, you just press that button there. And, well, it's not damped, which is a bit weird. So what you can do in this car is you can actually proper tailgate. So you can sit here, hang out, you know, enjoy this beautiful view of this, well, abandoned storage facility. And that is the trunk. Oh, yeah, you guys probably want to see the trunk. It is huge. I think it's actually the same size, or maybe a bit bigger than the trunk of a new Range Rover. It's not quite the size there as my XC90. It's not as deep, but it is very nice and very huge. So yeah, and you close it up like that, and then you also just slam this shut. So there you go, guys. That was my exterior and interior tour of this, the 2005 I mean, Range Rover Vogue. I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please drop me a thumbs up down below, and for more car content, as always, guys, please subscribe. See you guys later, and goodbye.